Okay, welcome back. This is ELM Prep 4, Part 4, and we're going to talk a little bit about shapes in this episode. The most fundamental shape that we might want to start with is our basic square. Well, if I tell you it's a square, you automatically know some things about this. We know that each of these angles is a 90-degree or right angle. We know that all of the sides are in fact equal to each other because it is a square. The definition of a square is it's a quadrilateral with perpendicular sides that are equal. It's equilateral, meaning all the sides are equal. So the very fundamental thing we're talking about is a square. If we talk about the square in terms of perimeter, we're talking about the distance around, which means we're going to add these values. If this side is equal to S or whatever you want to use, what letter you want to use, then each of them are S, so I'd have an S plus an S plus an S. I would essentially say that the perimeter is equal to 4 times the S. That seems pretty straightforward. If I walk around this and go 4 feet this way, 4 feet this way, 4 this, I went a total of 16 feet, or 4 times 4. So perimeter is the distance around, and it is a linear distance, meaning it's in inches, feet, yards, miles, kilometers, meters, centimeters, whatever. It's just a linear measurement. Okay. So the other thing that we might talk about in terms of this shape is the area of this shape. Well, the sides are still equal. All the sides are still equal. But the area is in terms of how many squares, how many little squares can I put in this thing? Well, if I had 4 here and 4 here, I'd have 4 lines there and 4 lines there, or 4 columns. So I would 1, 2, 3, 4, and this happens to be a 5 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 5 by 5. Good. So one of the things I could do with this is I could count them all up. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 15, 20, 25. Oh, I counted them up and they're 25. So there's 25 square whatever this is. If this were centimeters, it would be square centimeters. And we might use the term cm with a little square symbol on it. If we're talking area, we're talking square whatever. Measurement squared, whatever that is. So one of the things we want to be careful of is the units that we use. So what might be what if we didn't have just a nice 5 by 5? What if this was 200 by 200? Well, we don't want to count all those squares. What we found out was when it was 5 by 5, we ended up with 25. 5 by 5. Wow, look at that. 5 times 5 is 25. In this case, the same thing applies. The area is this side times this side. And since they're equal, we could say it's 200 quantity squared. Or if we multiplied that, we get 4 with 4 zeros, or 40,000. Well, certainly we don't want to count 40,000 little squares. But the idea is, regardless of what the side is, it's the one side times the other. 5 by 5, 20 by 20, 200 by 200, 27 by 27. Well, that's pretty straightforward. The square seems fairly obvious, but what if we don't have a square? We have a rectangle. Well, a rectangle is where we have 2 different sides. They're still perpendicular on each side. So each of these corners is a right angle, and each of those angles is 90 degrees. But I have and generally it's accepted that the longer side is length and the shorter side is width. I have seen problems where they switch this around. They would call this the width and this the length, but don't let that throw you. Just look at which side is which. Well, they might tell you that this is 8 and this is 5, and so the area of that would be 5 times 8 So the area would be, or 40 square units, whatever those units were. Well, again, if I wanted perimeter, well, this is 5. Because these are right angles, all of the two long sides and the two short sides are parallel to each other. So this side is equal to this side. So I have two W's and they're equal. I have two lengths and they are equal. Well, the perimeter, well, I have two lengths and I have two widths, and I add them up. 5 plus 5 is 10, and 8 plus 8 is 16. So I'm going to have 26 units in perimeter. So perimeter is in units, area is in square units. Well, there wasn't a whole lot different between the rectangle and the square in terms of the things that we do with it. So that is nice that those are so similar to each other. Well, what if they tell us, and they usually do, they give you some vague amount here. They'll say in their paragraph that the length is twice the width. You say, wow, now what? Well, I know I have a length, and I know I have a width, and they said the length was equal to twice the width. Okay, well, that seems like a nice thing to know. So if I wanted perimeter, I know that the lengths are equal and the widths, sorry about that, the widths are equal. So I have a W here and I have 2W here. So there's 2W and 2W for 2 times the length times the width, 2 times 2W plus the W, 2 times the W. Well, I have 2 times 2 is 4W plus 2W for a total perimeter of 6W. Well, that didn't turn out to be so bad after all. We still are using the concept that the sides are equal to each other in proportion. The widths are equal, the lengths are equal. In a square, the length and width are equal to each other, so all sides are equal. All right, well, what if I was asking for the area given this information? Well, I know it's length times width, so I'd say 2W times W. Well, I get 2W squared. W times W is W squared. So I have 2W squared, and so my area, regardless of what W is 2W squared, because area is in terms of square units. All right. Okay, we'll play around with a little more of this as we go along, because they do all sorts of fancy things with these rectangles. They might say that given a rectangle where the length is 2 more than the width. Well, we know this is width. The question is, what's length? Well, it's 2 more than the width. Well, that's W plus 2. The more means plus. So this is, the length is actually W plus 2. W plus 2. And then from there, I would either use my perimeter, adding all of them up, or I would multiply length times width and get the area. The idea here is once I interpret the statement length is 2 more than width, I write it out and I say, oh, okay, now that I know everything, I can find the perimeter or the area depending on what they're asking. So, our basic shape this time started out with a square, and then we extended it to the idea of a rectangle. These are very similar. The only difference being the sides are equal here, all 4 sides, and over here the opposite sides are equal. All right, that basic shape was a rectangle and a square. Hope to see you again. Hope this was informative. Thank you. Have a good day.